It was a dark, moonless night in Svet, a small Serbian village. After a long day at work, my coworker Anna and I were going home. We opted to take the alleyway near the cathedral as a shortcut. We hummed a melody to pass the time. The only thing we could hear was the quiet shuffling of leaves beneath our feet. Except for a few stray cats running around in the shadows, the streets were deserted. I knelt down and fed them half of my lunch sandwich. A shiver ran down my spine as we approached the end of the street. Before rushing past us, the cats began hissing and yowling in fright. Then we noticed her, a woman dancing straight ahead. She stood on the other side of the street, lit only by a nearby street lamp's flickering glow. I initially mistook her for a street dancer dressed in traditional Serbian garb, with a long, flowing skirt that flowed with every step. But as we got closer, I saw something wasn't quite right. Her movements were jerky, exaggerated, and unnatural. Her eyes were empty and her face was expressionless. We turned back and accelerated our pace to put some gap between us. The dancing lady, on the other hand, followed, her movements becoming more frantic. We hurried, hoping to get away from her, but she was hot on our tail. Anna stumbled and collapsed. When I turned around, I saw the woman's stretched fingers reach out and grab Anna by the shoulder, her nails piercing into her flesh. Anna tried, but the dancing woman was too powerful. I screamed angrily, insulting the intruder, and dashed over to Anna's aid. Anna was freed when the odd woman smiled from ear to ear. But she grabbed me right away, her grip intensifying. Her hot breath touched the back of my neck. She spoke something in a language I didn't understand. Even if I could have heard her words, I doubt I could have comprehended the lunacy in her voice. She shoved me to the ground and danced around me, filling me with a dreadful sense of impending doom. I sat there, immobilized with fear. The woman continued to dance, moving with miraculous grace and fluidity. Her motions were erratic, and her mouth twisted into a horrible grimace. I tried not to gaze at her and looked for a way out. Then she produced a knife from her pocket, and I saw I was in the company of something truly horrible, something beyond my comprehension. The dancing lady appeared to be in a trance, lost in her own universe, yet she wasn't alone. I was about to leave when I heard a scream from behind me. I turned to see Anna being taken away by two black-clad figures. They moved softly and quickly, faceless and featureless shadows. I tried to run after them, but the dancing lady held me back with power belying her small stature. Anna's screams resonated across the deserted streets, becoming fainter and fainter until they vanished completely. I was alone with the dancing lady, her fervor growing by the second. I knew if I didn't flee soon, I'd end up like Anna. I managed to break free and run as fast as I could in the opposite way thanks to an adrenaline rush. I didn't look back till I got to my flat building. When I did, I swear I saw a woman levitating in the distance. The dancing lady's eyes pierced the back of my skull as I fumbled with my keys. But as I took one last look before closing the door, she was gone. I slammed the door shut, dashed inside, and dialed Anna's phone number in a frenzy. There was no response. I called multiple times, each time being routed to voicemail. My mind raced with ideas. Perhaps she had fought them off and escaped, but had misplaced her phone? Maybe she was safely home, fatigued and fast asleep? Or perhaps she was unable to respond? Anna finally returned my call. I breathed a sigh of relief. When I answered, all I heard was heavy breathing followed by an unfamiliar language, not her voice. Then, in that alien language, I got a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. I instantly hung up the phone and dialed 911. They promised to arrive at my house in 5 minutes. I sat on my couch, shivering, counting the seconds till I reached safety. The hairs on the back of my neck suddenly rose up. When I looked out my balcony door, there she was, carrying Anna's severed head in one hand and a bloody knife in the other. My vision became blurry, and I felt dizzy. The knife scraped against the glass door as she continued her dance. Her movements became increasingly irregular, and I felt as if I was under her spell as I watched her. I stood up, walked over to her, eased the door open, and asked her in. It was as if I'd lost control of my body. We danced in unison, our gazes riveted. I'd never seen anything like this dancing lady before. Her movements were unsettling, and her gaze seemed to bore through my soul. She suddenly brought the knife to my throat and murmured something in her strange language. I wanted to yell, to fight, but I couldn't. Then came the distant sound of police sirens. My deliverance! As they pounded on my door, the dancing lady reached in, kissed my cheek, and leapt over the balcony into the darkness. I fainted as the world went dark. I awoke in a hospital the next morning. I was drenched in perspiration and trembling as I tried to make sense of what had happened while a doctor did some tests before releasing me. When I asked about Anna and the dancing lady, the hospital staff stared at me puzzledly, even inspecting my head for injuries again. I called Anna's family as I was leaving. I was at a loss for words and didn't know how to explain what had happened to their daughter. But, throughout our talk, I discovered something startling. Anna's family had no recollection of her. It was as though she didn't exist. I tried to ignore it as a strange coincidence, but it gnawed at me. I remembered the unusual language employed by the dancing lady. I scoured the internet and questioned locals in my search for answers. That's then I realized the truth, the dancing lady was possessed by a demon. She was a powerful creature capable of possessing whoever she came into contact with and compelling them to dance until they died of weariness, or were consumed by madness. Her minions were the faceless shadows who kidnapped Anna. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, I began conducting research to learn more about her and discover her flaws. I returned to the cathedral where I first saw the dancing lady and waited for the inevitable confrontation. I stood there, armed with the knowledge I had gained, on a dark, moonless night evocative of our first meeting. She appeared out of nowhere. I confronted the devil while standing my ground. The ensuing combat was fierce, and she appeared to have the upper hand at times. I persisted, and with a burst of energy, I delivered a powerful strike that knocked her out. There was a brief, tense silence, and I briefly assumed I had won. She advanced, her shape twisting in a strange ballet, with a loud roar. As I braced myself for her attack, I remembered that faith may weaken devils. I started saying the prayers that my grandma had taught me. Her dance slowed as I hoped desperately. Then she vanished in a bright burst of light, leaving me alone in the surrounding blackness. That event is still fresh in my mind. I'm still not sure what the dancing lady's goals were, but the experience showed me that there are mysteries in the universe that push our comprehension and test the limits of our sanity. Finally, there was no way to get away from the Serbian dancing lady. She had claimed me, and I was destined to be her constant dancing partner.